Two losses in a week for Oxford United, but two very different feelings about one. Welcome back to Walking the London Road. Connor back with us this week, and of course we have to talk about that diabolical performance against Norwich City at the Castad and a spirited 1-0 loss against Sunderland in the FA Cup. Connor, I don't think it's got much to do with the fact that we were absolutely diabolical midweek, but you missed the visit of Sunderland. You spent time in London over the weekend. That must have been better time than watching Oxford 95% of the time.
It was, right, but okay. Obviously, we had the Norwich game, which was an absolute disaster and a horrific watch and a horrific experience. But do you know what was even worse of a horrific experience, Sam? It's when you take your first sip of your cocktail and then you feel it hit you, and then you turn to your missus and says, "Leave the football before the football leaves you." Football's left him.
Oh dear, Connor. Oh dear, mate.
I know I'm going to have to hang up the boots early. It's got David Bentley retirement written all over it.
And that because how weary was the head in the morning?
It was actually it was okay, but don't go mixing drinks. I'm getting old, Sam. I'm moving from the beers to the wines. I'll be getting wines at J Sports Bar next.
Yeah, I on a couple of away days have mixed, not voluntarily. People have just bought me drinks and I've gone, yeah, sure. In that kind of, after we've had it for you, just drink anything that's got alcohol in it. So you're just like, yeah, I'll take that and that and that, and by that point you just end up rat-assed, or there's many other different phrases that you could use for that. But I mean, to be honest, after Tuesday night, I could have done with getting completely rat-assed. Before we get too far into talking about that diabolical performance against Norwich, folks, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Really helps us out in the algorithm. Follow myself, Connor and Will on Twitter. And we said it before, we say it a million times. It really, really helps us out. The support you guys show, just the views we've been getting on the last couple of pods have been really, really encouraging. We work super hard at this podcast, and it's great to see that you guys enjoy it as much as we like making it, even if it some of those views do come from rival fans, hoping that we melt down. Not too many times, we don't like to have too many therapy podcasts, but obviously it does depend how Oxford United play. We would have needed a therapy podcast if we'd done one the day after that disgraceful performance against Norwich. So let's start with the lineup, because the lineup was it was horrific. There was so many questions being asked. And obviously Bloomfield did own up to it in the aftermath. It seemed the way it was set up was with Makosa as a right back and as a right wing back, I should say. Shemi as a left wing back. Makosa obviously maintaining his spot. Sparky up top, obviously due to the suspension for Will Lancashire. I can't lie, Connor. When I saw that lineup, I thought this could be a long night.
Yeah, I was the same as you. I thought that he just stuck with a back five. And then once we got into the game, it was what none of us expected it to be. And every man and woman that knows football inside that stadium knew what the issue was. And then the issue came to fruition in under 60 seconds. And by that being that it was actually a back four, and there was Long, Hellick and Makoso, all right-footed, playing along the back line, and only one left-footed in Brown. And what did we say? I think it was last week or the week before. Makoso, he doesn't do well on a right-back position when he's actually a right-sided centre-half.
Mm. And then, of course, that also includes Sam Long stepping into midfield, which obviously plays a part in the first goal. Him also playing on the left of that back three. It just so many areas of that squad baffled the hell out of me. And fair to play to Bloomfield for coming out and acknowledging that result was, or that team selection was his fault. We've said time and time again that, when managers kind of shirk responsibility for picking a team like that, that's when kind of things start to go pear-shaped. But again, we've said it time and time again. Manager can only do so much. It's not, it wasn't Matt Bloomfield that made a horrendous mistake in the midfield area. As the ball then gets lofted over the top, Sam Long and Jamie Cumming just both have a howler, and it's tucked home for the first goal for Norwich and the first goal for their what we were going into that game thinking was their third choice striker, given that obviously McCarmer and Sargent were both out for different reasons. 1-0 inside the first 60 seconds.
Yeah. I could have sworn that I saw a fair few people get straight back up and they went back to the bar. I could have sworn that I saw that. But yeah, no, it was that just set the tone straight away completely. And then for what very minimal people there were around, sitting around where I was anyway, we said that this was going to be a very long night. They just set the tone completely for the entire evening.
And we didn't do an awful lot to really try and get back into that game, I thought. We had 7 attempts, a single one on target. The only kind of major effort being an hour in from Stan Mills off a set piece. But other than that, it was just, there was nothing going on up front. And we'll talk about our issues in the attack a bit later when it comes to the Sunderland fixture. But Traore was absolutely running his tail off, causing us all kinds of problems, and we don't help ourselves for the third goal, because Makoso's out of position, doesn't track the man out on the far right hand side, who puts the ball in. And I think that someone's got to be doing a better job. I've watched it back and I can't decide whether it's defenders, whether it's Jamie Cumming that's got to do better to stop that ball coming across the face of goal, try and make an interception. Another catalogue of errors, which I think described all three of the goals. They were, fair play to Traore for the way he took them, but we did gift him 3 goals.
Yeah, especially the second goal. I mean, it just looked like a training exercise. I kind of agreed with what someone said on the radio that Norwich, they could see that they're improving, but they weren't they weren't like a good, solid championship team. I think that the more disappointment was that, as you say, we didn't lay a glove on them. That's not to say that that Norwich aren't, they are better. They are better than us, and it was always going to be a task. But I think that a lot of the fan base circled this game and targeted this game as somewhere where we could potentially get points, and it's one that's an opportunity, unfortunately, that's just been absolutely thrown away. And that energy seeped through a lot of the stands, and I think that a lot of negative energy, seeping out from the pitch went straight into the stands, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. And then to top it all off, another individual error. Emaku passed it straight into path of Traore, and he slots it home for his hat-trick just inside the second half. And it was done and dusted from there. And to be honest, Norwich, I think, could have had a fourth goal with some of the chances they were creating. They smelt blood in the water.
Yeah, I have to say, it was some signing that Norwich have made for Toure. He's got each game that he's played now. He scored what, 5 in 3 now. Did you hear what he said after the game? So I got 2. If I didn't get my third, I would delete myself. I would as well if I was playing against Oxford.
I know, right? To be fair, you'd do that if you were playing for Oxford. You'd be licking your lips going into a game like that if you were playing against us.
Yep.
But you're right, Toure. Just the first of 2 players that we're going to give some rare bit of praise to from this match week, because you're right, he ran his tail off, striker's instinct, the way he took both goals was really, really good. His pressing, I thought he gave our players no time to think about what they were going to do with it, so it caused errors. You're right, Norwich have got themselves a proper little player there.
Yeah, I was just say he he must be a Sargent replacement because as he's not playing at the moment. So I know that there was a couple in the fan base or in the Oxford fan base that actually pinpointed and targeted Tory and said that this is a player we should be looking at. But even if we were in for him, if you weigh up Norwich or Oxford, I think that there is literally only one team in yellow you're going to, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. So, two other talking points we want to discuss on the Norwich game before we kind of throw it to the side and hopefully burn it from our memories. First is we finally saw the long-awaited debut of Jin Woo-jeon after his move from South Korea. And look, there was a certain amount in the East Stand of the hype around him, almost being like we had with Romani, like we had with Marcelino, about this really high-profile signing from Asia, or Asian international, I should say, and all that kind of thing. And it kind of being a joke amongst fan base, kind of anytime he got near the ball. But at the same time, the way he applied himself in the short time he got, and the little cameo he had against Sunderland, he's looking right up for it.
I was going to say, I thought he looked like a tiny little player. And I know I said the same when Romney came, and look how that turned out. But this guy looks like a real tiny little player. I thought I was quite impressed with his energy and how he's putting himself about up against Norwich. He looked like that he was up for it and that he wanted the fight. I was surprised, to be honest, that he wasn't there from the start. I fully expected him for Bloomfield to give him a full start. But yeah. Him and you're right in that the players that we signed that are Asia internationals haven't exactly been what we'd hoped that they'd be thus far.
I mean, we've said, we've gone back and forth on this a couple of times, that I will still stand up for Romani because I think the lad has shown not enough glimpses, but he has shown glimpses in an Oxford United shirt. Marcelino, I think we can both agree, that was a PR signing, with all due respect to Marcelino. But Romane has shown glimpses in Oxford shirt. But I think of the three of them, it's pretty clear that so far, Jin Woo-jeon is going to be looks like he'll be the better addition. The other talking point is the reason that we still haven't broken that record of ours. And that's a certain referee. Now, we don't like to complain about referees too much on this show. And I'm also going to caveat with, as we've already said, we were honking. The result was not down to the referee. At the same time, some of his decisions were absolutely baffling. And as I put in the group chat, how in all that's fucking holy is Sam Allison continually allowed to referee our games? Because I went back, he also refed our game at the Hawthorns when he denied Will Lancashire 2 penalties. He's a Scum fan. He used to play for Scum. One of my mates who deals with referees on a regular basis said he still lives in that area. I thought referees weren't allowed to referee their club or their rivals.
I thought that was the same. I thought that if any of your immediate family, you have to pledge or you have to disclose what team it is that you support. And if any of your immediate family members have a season ticket to them or any other club, you can't ref their games or their immediate rivals. How has he been allowed to ref our game? I'm not trying to platform conspiracy theories, but when it's been 600 odd days which you haven't had a penalty, and then there was one that I thought was a penalty written all over it, and you're not given that one. This is the kind of stuff that we're having to cling on and grasp to.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, it's not exactly like it's a secret that Sam Allison used to play for Scum, is a Scum fan. And a certain amount of this does have to go on the club, because if you're repeatedly getting Sam Allison and you're not, I understand that it could come off as whining or making excuses for yourselves if you're saying this referee shouldn't be allowed to ref our games before the fixtures when the fixtures first announced and you get told this is your referee. As soon as you see Sam Allison, right, we need to put in complaint in because he's a Scum fan, he cannot be allowed to ref us. I wouldn't expect an Oxford fan to be able to ref ding or scum. I wouldn't expect it because that's just not, that's not fair. You know, there is legitimate, legitimate concern about unfair refereeing decisions. So it's baffling that he's continually allowed to ref our games. Like I said, he has nothing to do with the result because we were fucking awful. Matt Bloomfield has come out and said, the players come out and said it, we were diabolical. Going forward, he cannot be allowed to referee our games at all because there were some calls he made in that game that, like you say, two blatant penalties in my view. There's one where the Lino puts their flag up for offside, but Jim Woo wasn't actually offside. It's just ludicrous. But
where is Sam Allison on the Trevor Kettle scale?
Oh.
It's tough, man. It's a tough one.
I think he's above Trevor Kettle because
go on.
Kettle's, if from memory, Kettle's biggest problem was KR.
Yeah.
Him and KR just didn't never could even get on amicably, I think. Whereas Allison, it's regardless of the manager, he gives shit decisions against us. And he's I'm not gonna like I say, we're not ones to pump conspiracy theories. That's not what I'm gonna do. On the other hand, I will say I'm pretty sure there might have been a cheeky little grin on his face when he was walking off at half time, and we were when we were chanting stuff like "you scum bastard" at him. But I might have been seeing things wrong when I was watching the match replay back. So I'm 100% willing to take that back. But I think at the minute Allison is above. Is kind of our most hated referee at the minute.
This is assuming we're going to get relegated. There is absolutely no way that he can't officiate in League One, can he?
No.
If that lot go up.
Imagine he gets awarded our game against Ding next season.
That would be horrific.
It would basically probably just sit in the fucking dugout.
It would. It would get abuse from all areas.
Yeah, there's not a chance he'd be allowed to do one of Scum's games. So
no.
Why is he allowed to do ours or things? Anyway, so that's one loss. Let's talk about the other loss. Oxford United are out of the FA Cup after a 1-0 loss to Sunderland. A very spirited performance in the FA Cup. Bow out with a certain degree of dignity, I think, in the way we performed. Again, we'll talk about refereeing decisions, and we might have a little debate here because I think there's a little bit of disagreement, perhaps, on the key decision in this instance. Let's show you the lineup. Of course, that was deployed at OX4 for the visit of Original Blues side. Matt Ingram started in goal. That was, for me, the first moment my eyebrows went up. A back four was deployed with Brodie Spencer at right back, a central two of Kieran Brown and Makoso, and then Jack Curry at left back, back to the back four. Then we had Will Vaulks and Cameron Brannigan, of course, as the standard two in the centre of the park, and then behind Will Lancashire, of course, back from his suspension, was a start for Jim Woo John. Jamie Donnelly making his return to Oxford United action after, of course, being withdrawn from the game against MK only a quarter of an hour into making his Oxford United debut. And Stan Mills. And I have to say, other than, as we'll get into, the appearance of Matt Ingram, I thought when that lineup came out, that's a very strong lineup.
Yeah, I thought the exact same. My eyebrows raised at Matt Ingram, and then was very happy to see, Jim Woo starting Donnelly back, and Lancashire as well after he's come back from his suspension. I thought it was a very progressive, very attacking lineup, and I think that the view was that we were gonna, try and go for it, which was nice to see. And it was a return to what we thought that Matt Bloomfield would be playing in a 4-2-3-1.
Hopefully it continues. We've talked about him a lot over the past two shows, I think, but just a minute on Chris Makoso, because this lad seems to be able to thrive in a back three or a back two. He's looks sensational. Another really strong performance, I thought, against Sunderland. I want to come back to a point I made last week. This lad is 21 years old, and he looks already that good. What a player we've got. I think that this might be our new centre half pairing for the majority of the rest of the season, Connor.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be, unfortunately, because as great as Hellick was last second half of last season, it's just not been working out for him this year. So, you know, come Middlesbrough, that more likely will be the central defensive partnership of Brown and Makoso, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the two form a relationship. You know, in league games, I guess we could say when there's more pressure on them as well. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. Will be mentioned, by the way, for Brown staying so consistent. I mean, so consistent in that back line that he isn't the one that's being dropped. The only reason he didn't play, he didn't have much of a role to play for the majority of last year was because he was injured.
Yeah, 100%. It is interesting, because Hellick was, I think, other than Kieran Brown, obviously, for the first half of the campaign, was our best defender last season. And, like I say, the partnership they formed and the way it kind of tailed off towards the end we thought, okay, if we can't get these two playing consistently together, we might be in a bit of trouble. They have played consistently together, and we've still been in a bit of trouble because there's been some debate over Mikhail Hellick's performances. I think he's been, by his standards, he's been poor. But the standards he set last season were so high that what it drops down to is still relatively, a relatively okay season for him. Whereas Kieran Brown has kind of bounced back, doing what he always does, puts his body on the line and all that kind of thing, and we're back to what we were in the promotion season, in that Kieran Brown does not move from the centre half position, and then it's just a matter of fighting for who plays next to him.
Exactly, yeah. He is now one of those players like down the spine of the team that he's all, along with him and Brannigan, he's going to be the first ones on the team sheet. Notice I didn't say the goalkeeper, because I'm sure we'll come on to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, because I think that there might need to be some apologies given to Matt Ingram from myself. But again, we'll talk about that momentarily. So I thought we started pretty well in this game. Obviously, we were always going to be under immense amount of pressure. They're a Premier League quality side. They've got some unbelievable players. And this is where the other bit of praise is going to come in. Mundle looked a joke of a footballer. There's a run he made late in the second half where he manages to drive past three of our players. And then I think Brodie Spencer gets him to the byline and manages to see the ball out of play. But Mundle just looked so dangerous at every moment of that game. He's a brilliant little footballer. But it was cagey. Don't get me wrong, we weren't offering an awful lot. We created 11 opportunities, but just 3 of those were on target. And even then, I think those 3 on target came very much late on in that game. So it was cagey, but we were, standing toe-to-toe with a Premier League side until the first of the 2 contentious moments happens. Of course, to set the scene, it's Sirkin on the edge of the area with the ball drifts inside and kind of looks to cut it across, but Makoso's at his back. Now, from what it seemed or how I saw it in the East stand, Makoso gets his foot to the ball, gets it away, Sirkin hits the ground, and referee gives a penalty. watching the one available replay that I was able to find at half time, it seems to back up that Makoso gets the ball. Now, there is a hint that potentially Makoso steps on the toe of Sirkin as he gets a touch on the ball, so it's kind of inconclusive as to kind of which he touches first. But either way, it's either not a penalty or a very soft one. Connor, what was your view on this?
See, I thought it was a penalty. I'm going to have to be in the minority. Yeah, I thought it was, unfortunately, I thought it was a penalty. I thought that Sunderland man played Bacoso to a fiddle, and it was just that football intelligence. If you look at the way that when he's going towards the byline, it's the way that he just shifts his body slightly, going to the left. And then when it looks like that Makoso makes contact with his foot, because it looks like, I know that he's not going towards goal, but he's going away from Makosa, going away from the player. And that's what I think that the referee has seen, you know, to be in order to, you know, unfortunately award a penalty. It could also just be big club bias, but I'm going to have to give the referee some leeway in this one.
And we'll get on to where more of that could come into play later on down the line, because it's funny how we haven't talked about refereeing for probably the majority of this season in one podcast. We've got 2 games with horrific refereeing going against Oxford, and we're not just saying that because we're Oxford fans. We'll talk about that in a minute again. But like you say, it's obviously in the moment, and I think in hindsight, I think obviously standing in the East Stand in the heat of the moment, I was always going to say it wasn't going to be a penalty, because just the sight that we've got in the East Stand, especially where I sit in the East Stand, is literally right in front of where the foul happened. So my thought process was, he's got the ball, not a chance, all that kind of stuff. Like I say, watching the replay back, I think from the angle I've got, it looks inconclusive. So I can understand how it's a soft one, but it's so incredibly soft if it is a penalty. And it is unfortunate because, like we said, we've talked about Chris Makoso and his performances and how good he's been, and that's just the... You know, we've said it already this podcast, but he's a 21-year-old, and you're going to expect that ever so slight mistake being made by a 21-year-old centre-half, even if the rest of the game he was absolutely sublime.
Yeah, 21 is still a very, very young age in whatever industry you're in. So, you know, you can look as accomplished and assured as, you know, as Makoso has looked. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's still a kid, still 21 years old, and he's still susceptible to making mistakes. And, you know, it's going to be a good learning curve for him, because ultimately the Premier League is going to be where he wants to be, and I reckon where he thinks he can get. So, you know, to learn off a mistake like that, I think would be invaluable. And I'd rather it be in a cup game than it be against West Brom next week or Middlesbrough this coming week.
100%, yeah. This is the game where you want almost mistakes to be made so the players can get them out of their system and learn from them almost. Diarra tucks the penalty away, sends Ingram the wrong way, and it's 1-0 Sunderland. From that point, we look to get back in the game. We apply some pressure to Sunderland, again not making an awful lot of chances. There's a shout for a penalty on Mills. Obviously, in the minute I'm screaming, that's a penalty ref, you cheating, you know.
Yep.
But it's so poorly played from Stan Mills. I think it's contact on his upper body, and he kind of hits the deck. And that seems to be a theme of, you know, there's been lots of conversations about why Oxford still haven't, you know, broken this over 630 odd day record of getting a penalty.
Is it going to get to? Is it going to get to? Is it going to get to 2 years? Is what I'm asking.
I tell you what, it's going to get to, mate. It's going to get to our first game back in League One. That's when we get a spot kick.
Exeter away for a spot kick. Love it.
Nah, I tell you who it'll be. It'll be at blooming Cambridge or something.
Oh
Like
yeah,
they'll get back up to League One, and then our first game of that, because we always get blooming Cambridge first game of the season. For
yeah.
penalty, bang, and then we'll probably Brannigan will miss it, knowing our luck. But it's all jokes aside, it is a common thing that our players aren't very good at getting the ref to buy fouls on them. I know it sounds weird, but I mean, again, we'll talk about it in a minute. There is a mix of is this a bit of big club, small club bias in there, but at the same time, it does fall on the players. I mean, there's a fantastic example a couple of weeks ago. I think it was against QPR when Stan Mills breaks through the area and is fouled in the area, but stays on his feet. And if he goes
Yeah.
down, you get like every day of the week you get awarded a penalty. So at the same time, though, we've had players fouled in the area, go down, ask for it, and not be given it. So on the one hand, you say you try and do the loyal thing, or sorry, the just thing, and stay on your feet and try and score. Ref's not going to give you a penalty because he's going to play advantage. But if you go down, it seems more often than not, referee thinks you've gone down too softly and might even book you for simulation. So we literally can't win in this scenario.
I know, and he's been the culprit of doing that as well. You know, he's been fouled on the edge of the box, or he's been fouled inside the box, and he gets up and carries on running rather than going down. You kind of have to admire both Stan Mills and Plaheta for wanting to get up and carry on with their game and carry on the attack, but it's that decision making about what's the best to do for the team rather than individuals. And especially, as I keep banging on with Plaheta and his decision making, in those critical key moments.
So Thomas Kirk's questionable decision kept coming because there's a foul from Enzo Lefebvre on Cameron Brannigan. In the minute, I didn't see what happened, but again, replays at half time. Enzo Lefebvre, to me, Colin, looked a very, very lucky boy to stay on the pitch.
Yeah, I thought that as well. And I couldn't quite, hello Sunderland fans, this is what you came for. I couldn't quite understand what Sunderland fans were saying, then it was a perfectly fine tackle. When it seemed like that with every touch of the ball, the Sunderland fans would go down as if that they'd been hit by a bag. Sunderland players, would go down as if that they were hit by a bag of cement. Is that what it is like in the Premier League? Because, it's... Yeah, I think Enzo Lefebvre was a very lucky chappy to still be on the pitch. Should mention that probably if it was the other way around, there would have been at least a yellow, or would have been very orangish.
To be fair, I think he did get booked for that. I think he did get a yellow card for that challenge, but I think I think you're right, in the Premier League, that's probably a red card, because VAR will probably look at it a million times and look at the height of his foot, where it lands on Brannigan and all that kind of stuff. So he's probably saved by the fact that the referee has got a decision to make in that moment, has got no replays to help him, even though there's a big sod-off board literally that he's staring at. We've been over that so many times about we're probably one of the only grounds in the league that's got accessible VAR for refs. You've just got to turn your bloody head. Yep. But at the same time, I think potentially it's tricky because, like I say, I think in the minute of when the challenge is made, and I look back at it, he's a very, very lucky boy to stay on the pitch. But there's also Brannigan got, again, it's one of those Brannigan things where he kind of, he obviously stays down for a little bit, but he gets back up and he's running around quite, just like Cam always does. Mm-hmm. So does that put in the referee's head, oh, actually, the challenge wasn't that bad, I've not made that much of a mistake? It's the honour of our players has almost kind of saved our opponents so many times from not getting decisions against them.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And Cammy's just that player that he's never gonna say that he's done unless he's told that he's done.
Yeah.
So that can work both in our favor and work against him. But
I
it's
mean,
just the bloke he is.
I'm convinced that his last game in football, it will literally take the entire coaching staff to drag him off the pitch
Oh
for that
yes,
final time,
yeah.
because that lad just doesn't want to leave the football pitch willingly. Um, so again, Sunderland keep building, they keep creating decent opportunities. I mean, they had 17 shots, 9 on target, 3 big chances, 2 of which they missed. So as much as I think it was a spirit performance, I don't think we can feel too hard done by the fact that, they scored a goal because, they created the chances to warrant it. At the same time, the boys defended very, very bravely, and Matt Ingram, he massively proved me wrong. Fair play, Matt Ingram in the FA Cup, because in the EFL Cup earlier in the season against Brighton, I think he's responsible for at least 3 of the goals. In the FA Cup last year against Exeter, I think he's responsible for 2 of them. And I think he's got to do a lot better for the 3 goals that he lets in on the final day of the season against Swansea, where, yes, it's a party atmosphere, but we want to keep one last clean sheet. I think against Sunderland was a big, big statement from Matt Ingram of, this is why we signed you. This is the quality you've got as a goalkeeper. And the question now, Connor, is, does he start Saturday against Middlesbrough?
It's given Matt Bloomfield a very nice headache, because I think that there was a lot of us in the fan base that thought that we needed another goalkeeper, which we probably still do, in my opinion, anyway, whether we're in the Championship or possibly even League One, whether it be a new number one or whether it be for competition. But I think in the short term and the inter periods, he's given Matt Bloomfield a very nice headache to have. I mean, I don't think that a lot of us expected Matt Ingram to pull that kind of performance out of his locker. It is only one game, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But it does make you think, going up to Middlesbrough, there's a bit more. There's a bit more. I was going to say mystique. There's a bit more of a mysterious nature now as to who's going to be, in the in between the sticks.
And
Paul,
also,
sorry, Sam. I was say he stopped about what it could have been about. Well, about 4, 5, or 6. If Ingram wasn't pulling out some of those shot stopping saves.
yeah, some of the big stops he made. At the same time, one of the massive things we've criticised Jamie Cumming this season for is his long distribution. And Matt Ingram against Sunderland, his long balls forward were the most accurate our goalkeepers have been for a long, long time. So I think, like I say, that provides another really big headache for Matt Bloomfield as to what selection he goes for Saturday.
I think that what that's done is that that's put a lot of pressure on Jamie Cumming if he is in goal on Saturday. And even then, I think it might be unfair because he's playing against probably, albeit at the time of recording, they're 1-0 down at the moment, probably the best team in the league. So I think we should bear that in mind as well.
Yeah, 100%. So let's cap off the Sunderland game and talk about another instance of Thomas Kirk making a questionable decision. Again, for the majority of that second half, Sunderland had so many big opportunities. Mundell was a complete and utter pain for our wing-backs. Isidore doing what Isidore does best. The way he played was, even though he didn't get on the score sheet, he was a right pain in the arse for our defenders. And, I've always quite liked Wilson Isidore. But there could have been an opportunity for Oxford United, and we did have the ball in the back of the net. Ball is hoofed forward by Will Volks, and Will Lancashire. I'm trying to think how to best explain it, because it's just ridiculous. So long ball goes all forward by Volks. Lancashire and O'Nien are next to each other. Little shove from either one of them, and Lino puts the flag up. In that moment, in the East End, we're thinking, has he just called an offside for that? Even though Lancashire's run started in his own half. But from what the decision was, in hindsight and listening back to kind of various coverage of it, the referee gave a foul for that, and that, I mean, and I will say, I don't know whether that was the liner making that decision. You'll be better placed to tell us about this, Connor, because like I say, in that moment in the East Stand, as soon as we see that play stopped and Lancashire's got the ball in the back of the net and head in his hands, we go nuclear, thinking, what the fuck has just happened? I don't know whether that was the liner. I don't know whether that was Thomas Kirk, Thomas Kirk, the ref, but that was probably a more baffling decision than the penalty, because like I said earlier, I think it's probably a soft, but I could understand why it's a penalty, but I can't understand anything that Lancashire's done wrong in that instance.
No, I don't get it either. From the replays, you couldn't really see either the lino or the referee, so that made it a bit harder to see what was going on through the replays. But it was just Will Lancashire got sent off against Coventry for a big shove, and now he's got done over for a little shove, which I thought that football was a contact sport.
Yeah.
So I'm missed and I'm lost towards the rules of football now and what the laws of the game are. Because if I'm looking at that, I didn't think that there was any problem with it whatsoever. I'm sure that you lot in the crowd, as you said, going absolutely apoplectic that it was ruled for a foul. Yeah, I wouldn't have liked to have been sitting next to the bloke I'm usually to at football, because he would have been going bananas as well. But you're right. It just shows a standard of refereeing, I think, in the English game, either with inconsistencies or making ludicrous decisions such as that.
And I'll say to, as you mentioned, potential Sunderland fans watching this, hello folks, it's not even about the result at the end of the day, because yes, that goal would have been an equaliser. I think you would have gone on to get a second. If you were 2-3-0 up by that point, and that, and Lancashire is able to put the ball in the back of the net, that's our first goal of 2026. It gives a bit of a lift to a ground that really needed it off the back of a shocking Norwich performance. I was baffled, I was fuming in the moment. I'm baffled since. Obviously, it's another booking for Matt Bloomfield. And his interview after the game, he was very, very forthright in saying, I got booked basically for backing my team and asking a question of why that was a foul, and you get booked for it. So it seems that off our two most recent bookings for the manager, it's if you say a single word to a referee like hi, then they'll go, oh, you got to go in the book for that, and it's just ridiculous. Like you say, the standard of refereeing, it's absolutely a joke, a disgrace. I mean, imagine how bad EFL refs would be if they had blooming VAR.
Oh, it would be horrific.
It'd add an extra blooming hour onto each game, and they'd still get the bloody decision wrong.
I know, yeah. There are some referees in this footballing pyramid that should not be anywhere near VAR.
No. And, of course, that does come with the flip side that there is a shortage of referees in the English game. Partly because it's not a role you get thanked for. If a referee has a fantastic performance, they very, very, very rarely get applauded for it. But I think the point that we go on and other fan bases go on time and time again is that the bad performances are so regular that it just feels like the norm. I mean, we've said time and time again, the problem is that the only consistent thing about them is how inconsistent their decisions are.
I was literally about to say, a lot of us fans are at the point, fans of all clubs, that you wouldn't mind if they were bad decisions, but if they were consistently bad decisions for the same thing. And that's the one thing that I remember Robinson banged on about. It's like, if you get a decision wrong, you get decision wrong, but be consistent for both teams. And he's got a point.
It's baffling. So that was the quarter of an hour to go. We do have two opportunities to equalise coming from Makoso and from Kieran Brown. Kieran Brown's is the best. It comes from a header from a set piece. We were kind of right on the attack, trying to get level in the late stage of that game. It goes just past the post. Also, I think Robin Roos is it's been shown in the Premier League. He's an incredible goalkeeper. It's just I think they got him for a pretty nominal fee. That's a fantastic bit of business from Sunderland. He's a spectacular goalkeeper. It's a shame they didn't have Patson in goal like they did when they came to town in April, because we might have just got a goal at that point. But it finished 1-0 to Sunderland, and fair play. Go through to the next round of the FA Cup. And it's one of the prouder performances that we've showed and we've lost from an Oxford point of view, because we were right in it with a Premier League side, with a side that spent obviously a lot of money, but also the players they went up from the Championship with are also, of course, very, very good players. Any closing thoughts on the Sunderland game, Connor?
I feel like that there was more positivity coming out of this game than there was going into it. So we've got to, again, like it was against Leicester, make sure that we, after coming out against Leicester, that positivity isn't evaporated immediately, because coming into the next game was Birmingham, and that was an absolute horror show. So we got to hope that, I'm sure that the boys will know that they've had a good experience against a top 10, I think, if not certainly a top half Premier League side. They've had a good experience, and they've learned more about themselves than they are as a player, and be, good prep for Middlesbrough on Saturday.
So we go into, of course, as you mentioned, another trip to the Riverside on Saturday afternoon. I'm not making that trip again. Are you?
No, not a chance.
We made that mistake last year. We go into this game still 5 points inside the relegation zone. Christ almighty. Obviously, Leicester are now in the bottom three. Things not going very well for the Foxes after losing to the Oxes. But talk to us about this Middlesbrough side, because at the minute, at the time of recording, they are still losing 1-0 to Coventry in a top-of-the-table clash. They tore us apart last season when they came to the Castad and didn't do enough. It didn't take much for them to get the 3 points at the Riverside last year. So could this end up being a battering?
It could be. On paper, it should be. And I've been, throughout most of the season, I think up until about the last 6 weeks, I've been saying that I thought Coventry were the best team in the league and they would run away with it. But I think now, when the real talking is going to start happening, I think Middlesbrough, as you say, albeit 1-0 down at the time of recording, are probably the best footballing team in the league. I mean, when you look at some of the quality of players that they have, especially in attacking areas, and options like Morgan Whittaker, Tommy Conway, then in midfield, Hayden Hackney, like those players are players that can be in the Premier League very easily. And then at the back, you've got players who won the Championship and with Premier League experience, like Luke Ayling, Matt Targett as well. Winning 6 on the bounce, and they're looking like a better side under Hellberg than they did when they were under Rob Edwards. And don't think Rob Edwards will get a note or get a footnote in a promotion season, but I think that this is very much Hellberg's team. And I think if you're an Oxford fan and you're going up to Middlesbrough, fair play, and obviously you want a result, but there is also a little bit of realism has to come into play. I think sometimes it might be one of those games where you just have to sit back and say, like, this is a team that's going to be in the Premier League next season, like just a fantastic footballing side. A little bit like when when we went to Ellen Road and we got done over 4-0, but then when Leeds came to our place last season, like everyone on the ground could tell that that is a Premier League team in the Championship, and I think the same is true for Middlesbrough here.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we played Middlesbrough back in November just after Rob Edwards had departed.
Yeah.
So, do you think, obviously, the way that Rob Edwards left to go back to Wolves, has that lit the fire that you think is still burning, and that almost grudge they've kept against Rob Edwards has got this mentality into the Middlesbrough players of, well, you look like you're going to be come back down to the Championship. We're going to make sure that we're a Premier League side next season.
It could be, but I think that more credit should be going to Hellberg than it should. Then, you know, more of the story and more of the attention should be on Hellberg than it should be on the players wanting to get some sort of revenge or redemption on Rob Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm trying to loop it back to us and when Manning left, and then when we eventually got promoted, because that I see why you've asked that question, because a lot of that promotion season, whether we liked it or not, because a lot of it did loop back to the way that Manning left. So I can see why you've asked that question. But no, I think that more of the story will be about Hellberg coming in and his first role in English football, and he seems to have absolutely smashed it out the park.
And just looking at the January transfer window, of course it was more important that they kept players. Obviously, there's always going to be immense interest in Hayden Hackney because that lad is an incredibly talented footballer. Do you think that there was any real danger of them actually losing players like Hackney in the window, or do you think the squad going into it was they all had the idea of we're staying together, we're gonna go up as a group, and that's again contributed to why they've capitalised on Coventry's collapse in form?
I mean, every player has a price, right? It's like your house. Every house has a price. It's just how much are you willing to hold it on for. So if, let's say for a Morgan Whittaker, if I don't know, straight off the top of my noggin, if Chelsea came in and said, we'll offer 65 million, I don't think that Steve Gibson's probably going to turn that down. We'll probably try and rinse Chelsea for a little bit more money, but I don't think that they're going to turn like that kind of money down. And I think that they know that they more likely they could have a shot next season if they get promoted, which they probably will, of staying up, because the last few times that they've come up, I think that they've come straight back down, and that isn't something that they want to do. And they've seen what Sunderland have done, and they've seen what Leeds have done, and they probably see that there's a real opportunity in the next season, that if they spend a bit more, that the return on investments that they can get through being in the Premier League will be more fortuitous than it would be for having one season being another one season wonder.
What if they'll go and do a spree of very, very peculiar shopping like that, like they did last time when they were in the Premier League? I just remember some of the players, like I think Alvaro Negredo was one of their signings. I think they had Victor Valdez. I think they bought in that window as well. It was just a peculiar raft of players. Gaston Ramirez, I think they signed as well. That was Christ. That's a decade ago now. Bloody hell. That'd be quite. If they do get promoted again, that'd be quite a squad to compare. Of that, the 16-17 Middlesbrough side with the 26-27 Middlesbrough side. But thank you for all that previewing for the Saturday game, Connor. Thank you very much, viewers, for watching this episode. As we said at the beginning, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Really massively helps us out in the algorithm. And let us know your thoughts in the comments about the two losses we had this week and the state of refereeing in the UK, because I think it's fair to say, regardless of what shirt you wear, we all can agree it's fucking awful. We'll see you next week, of course, to review the Middlesbrough game, and we've got a couple more very, very busy double match weeks in the coming months. So stay tuned, and we'll see you very soon.